In today's video, we're heading 20 miles offshore into uncharted waters to fish giant schools of fish and explore floating debris. Just when we think we've hooked into something massive, the most heartbreaking thing happens. Without further ado, let's dive right into this adventure. We kick off our journey with a thrilling 20-mile run offshore looking for any signs of floating debris or diving birds. At about 18 miles out, we spot a frenzy of birds diving into the water. This was a sure sign of fish below. We set up our trolling lines and we start trolling. On this particular day, we realized we had forgotten one of our top lines back at home. So we had to make it happen with another rod we had brought along. For this trip, we were trolling our barjacks lure, a daisy chain of squids. So we put this lure out there and it did not take long for us to get that hit we were looking for. So I grabbed this rod and started fighting this fish, which was just spooling this smaller reel I had here. And when you're 20 miles out fishing these diving birds, it's mainly going to be blackfin tuna and skipjack tuna. You get an occasional mahi here and there, but those are a little more rare than these tuna we had. And after we landed this fish, you guys are going to see what made this trip so heartbreaking. This was one of the roughest things that has ever happened to us while we were fishing offshore. As we got this fish near the boat, he made a dive about 100 feet under. Once this fish was tired out, I was able to start bringing him up. And let me know in the comments down below what's the most heartbreaking fishing story you guys have ever had. If you fish a lot, sooner or later you're gonna have a heartbreaking story like we had on our next fish. And what took us so long to bring in this fish was the tackle we were using. As I told you guys in the beginning, we had forgotten our main trolling setups at home, so I had to make it happen with a really small jigging reel here, which made this fight so much longer than it needed to be. We now had this fish about 50 feet below the surface, and it felt like a solid sized fish. As we continued to bring it in, we managed to stay on top of this school of fish for about 30 minutes, which helped us get 4 fish in the cooler. But what happened with our next fish really killed the vibes of this fishing day. We now had this fish right behind the boat and it looked like a solid sized tuna. We angled the boat a little to the left to make sure we would have a successful landing here. So we got this fish near the boat and I was able to just flip it in the boat and we were able to land this beautiful skipjack tuna. These skipjack tuna have an amazing neon lighting on their back. Right before we made that run offshore, my brother Austin wanted to catch one of these tunas. So we trolled for another 5 or 10 minutes this area and it didn't take long for him to get that bite. So we had this fish now right behind the boat and we saw that it was a different species of tuna, a blackfin tuna. So I flipped this fish in the boat and we were able to land this beautiful blackfin tuna. After this fish, it was time to make the run deep and go hook into a monster. And when you see what happened to us on this giant fish that we hooked into, you guys will see why it was such a heartbreaking moment for us. So I was casting at a lot of these floating objects on our way out, and we finally found this one that looked promising. We put our camera in the water and we saw this giant bull mahi right under this floating debris. I casted my lure out there and we hooked into a giant. So this mahi started jumping like crazy and everybody on the boat was super excited. It made some awesome leaps and put up an epic fight. My dad slowly angled the boat towards this fish so we could stay on top of it. As we followed this fish continued to jump, and this is what makes mahi so hard to land. They're always jumping, which makes it so easy for them to spit the hook out of their mouth. This fish continued to jump and this fish did this for a good 10 to 15 minutes just constantly, and I was shocked this fish didn't come off the hook. As we continued to fight this fish, we now got him right under the boat and this fish just dumped a bunch of our line when he dove under the boat. And this was not a great position to be in right here. I had a bad feeling that this fish would come off. So I slowly started working this fish up. And when you're fighting these fish, you constantly want to be loosening, tightening your drag because you just don't ever want to put too much pressure on this fish. So this fish ran back to the top, and as you guys can see, he continued to make a bunch of these jumps. And I was shocked that this fish was still on. This fish was just going completely nuts. So we now have this fish right in front of the boat. We thought we were going to get a really good gaff shot here, but again, he continued to jump and then he dove back down under the boat. After fighting this fish now and getting him from under the boat again, because the fish is under the boat, it's really their best shot of pulling the hook or possibly just breaking you off. So this fish again was back on top of the water here, and this is where we thought we would get a good gaff shot on it. And this Mahi was about 15 to 20 pounds. The camera really doesn't do it justice, but down here in South Florida, a 15 to 20 pound Mahi is great. Back maybe 10 years ago, you would catch these really easily, but nowadays these bigger Mahi are just so hard to come by. We put our underwater camera now in the water, and we got some sick shots of this Mahi near our boat. But this is where everything that could go wrong happened. So this fish made the jump right here, and he spit the hook right by the boat. This was such a heartbreaking moment for us, and a really bad way for us to end our day. Even though we had a rough day here, we hope you guys enjoyed this Barjacks video, and we hope to see you guys in the next Barjacks family fishing video.